Part 27. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Feng Yuan Candy. Chapter 261. After shopkeeper Feng figured out that he wanted to take over the restaurant, he instantly became energetic and motivated. Ms. Zhang is right, even if there is a war, it will not always be a war. When the war is over, everyone will live as they should, and they will open stores as they should. Moreover, he has been managing a restaurant for so many years and he doesn't know how to do anything else. Besides, if he had to follow his boss to the south, he might not be able to adapt to the environment there. His family and relatives are all here. It is difficult for everyone to leave their hometown and they don't want to leave their hometown to live in a strange place. So Zhang Ziluo's words made shopkeeper Feng no longer confused and found his direction. He couldn't be more grateful to Zhang Ziluo. So he had to run the restaurant well. Zhang Ziluo smiled and said, "Shopkeeper Feng is too polite. It's shopkeeper Feng who has the strength and courage. If it were someone else, even if I say these words, they won't be listened to and it's useless." Shopkeeper Feng felt that Ms. Zhang didn't look like an ordinary woman at all when she talked and spoke. It doesn't look like someone from the countryside. No wonder she is little brother Kui's wife. Neither of them looks like ordinary people. Shopkeeper Feng was polite to Zhang Ziluo and happily bought all the preserved eggs. Zhang Ziluo said, "Shopkeeper Feng, in about 10 days, it is best to close the restaurant to avoid the limelight of the war, and then reopen it after 2 or 3 months. But these 10 days are enough to use more than 200 preserved eggs." Shopkeeper Feng was stunned. He also thanked Zhang Ziluo for the reminder. Shopkeeper Feng did not bother Zhang Ziluo and bought 2 of her dishes. Zhang Ziluo saw that shopkeeper Feng was an honest person, so she didn't ask for much money, only 50 taels of silver. She also wrote down the recipe in detail on the spot, including how many ingredients, how many seasonings to put, and how to put them. They were all clearly written down. In this way, plus preserved eggs, Zhang Ziluo took 52 taels of silver. Including the 10 taels of silver earned from selling soap before, the total is 62 taels of silver and 500 yuan. With the silver in hand, Zhang Ziluo felt happy. In order to help shopkeeper Feng sell all the preserved eggs, Zhang Ziluo gave shopkeeper Feng an idea. "Shopkeeper Feng, if you want to attract customers to come to the restaurant to try fresh food, it's best to organize some promotional activities." Shopkeeper Feng was stunned. Promotion? It's a set meal, such as a set meal for 1 person, a set meal for 2 people, or a set meal for many people, which is cheaper than the actual order price. You can also propose a vegetarian set meal and use the cheapest set meal to attract customers. If everyone comes to eat in the store, if there is not enough, they will order more. We also need to find people to promote it more. It's best to post the meal plan at the door. Zhang Ziluo gave me an idea. In this era, there is no such thing as a set meal. As soon as Zhang Ziluo said this, shopkeeper Feng felt enlightened. He raised his hand and gave Zhang Ziluo a big salute. "Thank you so much, Miss Zhang. If the restaurant business can be completely improved, Ms. Zhang will be his noble benefactor." Feng. He really dozed off and someone gave him a pillow. Others would not be so kind. He thought it was probably because he had a good relationship with brother Kui. Looking back, he would also like to thank brother Kui. After Zhang Ziluo and Kui Qingkai came out of the restaurant, they drove the ox cart to Exiled Pavilion. The medicine boys at Exiled Pavilion, including Dr. all recognized Zhang Ziluo. They also warmly entertained Zhang Ziluo. Zhang Ziluo wrote down the prescription, and the medicine boy carefully helped to get the medicinal materials. This time Zhang Ziluo bought a lot of medicinal materials. She bought a month's supply of medicine. The 62 taels of silver were enough. I spent 50 taels of silver and there were still 12 taels of silver. Because it is not only the medicine that Kui Qingkai needs, but also the medicinal materials that Kui Hejin needs to nourish her body. That's a lot for 1 month. This is already cheaper than the medical clinic. Because all precious medicinal materials are used. In the past, when Zhang Ziluo bought medicine, Kui Qingkai didn't even follow her. This time I learned how expensive these medicinal materials are. She understood that some were bought for her. Kui Qingkai blamed herself and felt a little sorry. All the money my sister-in-law earned through her hard work was used to buy medicine. But she couldn't say she wasn't allowed to buy them, because her sister-in-law said that if she didn't take these medicines continuously, the medicines she had taken before would be in vain. All the poison in her body must be removed quickly. So when she was sitting on the bullock cart, Kui Qingkai lowered her head and was a little silent. Seeing Kui Qingkai's depressed look, Zhang Ziluo seemed to understand what she was saying. Qingkai, don't get entangled, and don't think too much. Money can still be earned, but talent is the most important. Look, when you get well, you can help with many things, and the money will be earned back soon, won't it? We can not only make soap in the future, but also many other things. You have to settle the accounts. Zhang Ziluo has been comforting Kui Qingkai. Kui Qingkai felt a lot more relaxed. She just knew in her heart that she must repay her sister-in-law well in the future. Kui Qingkai said, "Sister-in-law, don't worry, I'm fine." Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "Well, we will go to the agency to take a look later." Go to the agency. Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "Well, our family has 6 acres of land. We started with 1 acre, and then we bought 5 acres and planted crops on the 6 acres. It would be very slow for us to harvest food by ourselves. People in the village can't wait for 2 days. You have to hurry up and harvest the wheat. You don't have time to help us. Time is tight and you don't feel safe hiring anyone else, so I hired someone from the agency." Kui Qingkai doesn't understand very well, so the people in the agency can rest assured. At this time, Kui Qingkai did not know that Zhang Ziluo had accepted a disciple. Mrs. Kui didn't say anything about it either. Zhang Ziluo went to the agency, and the guard at the door of the agency recognized Zhang Ziluo at a glance. "Miss Zhang. Little Miss Zhang." The guards were very polite to Zhang Ziluo. In fact, everyone knows that the brothers who were seriously injured before were cured by Miss Zhang. The injuries on those people have now been healed. Zhang Ziluo said, "I'm here to find you, Mr. Wei." "Mrs. Zhang, please come in. Our young Master Wei has told us that if you come, just go in directly." A guard let Zhang Ziluo and Kui Qingkai in. Another guard helped to tie up the ox cart and look after it. After Zhang Ziluo entered, someone naturally went to report to Wei Xingyi. At this time, Wei Xingyi was sparring with several people in the martial arts training ground. Several people with good skills surrounded Wei Xingyi, and were beaten to the ground by Wei Xingyi. "Young Master Wei, how did you practice this kung fu? How did you make such rapid progress? Even so, it's too fierce. You obviously didn't react so quickly before, but now you're so fast with a sledgehammer." Wei Xingyi was even more filled with emotion when he heard the sighs from everyone. He made rapid progress because he worshipped his master, was taught by his master, and was taught a set of exercises. But master has taught you to guard against arrogance and impetuosity, and you cannot be complacent just because you have defeated the people in the agency around you. Because there are people outside the human world and there is a sky outside the sky. At this moment someone reported that Miss Zhang was here. Wei Xingyi put down the hammer in his hand and ran towards the door in excitement. End of chapter. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 262. When Wei Xingyi walked towards the door, he immediately saw Zhang Ziluo coming in from the door. "Teacher!" Wei Xingyi almost shouted out his master excitedly in front of everyone. But when he realized something, he quickly restrained himself. Although he restrained himself from calling master, the excitement in his eyebrows was obvious. "Miss Zhang, you are here. Please come in quickly. Wei Xingyeguan was excitedly talking to Zhang Ziluo, but when he noticed the beauty beside him, he was also stunned. Who is this? Kui Qingkai always looks cold and indifferent in front of outsiders. She only talks a lot in front of her family members. Kui Qingkai's taciturn appearance may seem incomprehensible to others. Zhang Ziluo said, "This is my sister, her surname is Kui." "Ao, hello, Mrs. Kui." Wei Xingyi asked the doorman to go back, and he took Zhang Ziluo and Kui Qingkai into the hall to entertain them. "Hurry up and get the best tea leaves to pour the tea, and bring the snacks my mother sent yesterday to my master, for Miss Zhang and Miss Kui to eat." The maid hurriedly went down to prepare. When there was no one else in the room, Zhang Ziluo said, "You don't have to be busy. I came here to talk to you about something." Wei Xingyi said seriously, "Master, just say, if you need my help with anything, I will do it. To be honest, Master, I have improved my martial arts very quickly now, thanks to Master's teachings. The training method you taught me is really powerful. I myself feel that I am much more responsive." Speaking of this, Wei Xingyi was excited. Wei Xingyi knew that as long as he studied hard with his master, he would make progress. Even his father praised him several times. "Oh, by the way, Master, and those people you saved before, have all recovered and are fine now. Everyone is grateful to you from the bottom of their hearts." Zhang Ziluo listened to Wei Xingyi's ramble and nodded in her heart. After Zhang Ziluo said something to Wei Xingyi, she asked about the reason for her visit this time. "Do you have the kind of people here who know how to do farm work, who work diligently, are down to earth, and speak harshly? There must be no problem with their moral character. Don't be too curious." Wei Xingyi said, "Our brothers in the agency are all loyal people. My father chooses people from the agency. If they are not loyal, they will never be used, let alone recruit them from the agency. Our family opened a martial arts gym. We first taught everyone martial arts. In fact, during the teaching process, the apprentices in the martial arts gym were allowed to perform freely. My father has placed people in it. We know everything about the martial arts gym every day. So we can all see clearly who is good and who is not. Those with questionable moral character will be kicked out directly. Even if those who stay are a little stupid in martial arts, as long as they practice diligently, they will make progress. Even doing some chores is better than people with bad intentions are countless times better." Zhang Ziluo nodded secretly and said, "Your father is good at selecting people for the agency. No wonder your agency has such a good reputation." Wei Xingyi nodded and said with a proud look, "Of course, none of us are afraid of life and death. We have experienced life and death on the journey, and we are all brothers who have had a fateful friendship. No one is greedy for life and afraid of death. It's just that our agency is different from other agencies. It's not that powerful." Zhang Ziluo smiled and encouraged Wei Xingyi, "Maybe your agency will develop and grow in your hands." Wei Xingyi smiled brightly and said, "That's right, I have to work hard." Wei Xingyi touched the back of his head and said, "By the way, Master, you said it would be no problem to find manpower. Not to mention the brothers from the agency, they were the ones you rescued last time. Those people, everyone wants to thank you. If they know they can do something for you, they will do it well and be very strict. We all in the bodyguard bureau are like this, because this involves the task of protecting the bodyguard. If you are lax and leak the master's goods, it will be very dangerous. Even my family and relatives don't tell me." Once he heard this, Zhang Ziluo felt relieved. Zhang Ziluo said, "Look, in 2 days, can 20 people come to Donghe village to help me harvest crops? I will pay you the wages when the time comes." Wei Xingyi waved his hand and said, "It's okay, Master, no wages required. I will arrange for someone to come over when the time comes." Zhang Ziluo said, "Let everyone speak tighter and don't let anyone know." Wei Xingyi saw Zhang Ziluo's serious expression and said solemnly, "Master, don't worry, I will definitely make arrangements." Zhang Ziluo nodded, stood up, patted Wei Xingyi's shoulder and said, "I can rest assured that you are doing your job." Although Wei Xingyi has a young mind, he is also calm in his work because he has been working with escorts all year round. Zhang Ziluo felt relieved and prepared to go back with Kui Qingkai. Wei Xingyi wanted to stay with them for dinner, but Zhang Ziluo also refused. She is still anxious to go home. If she goes back late, Mrs. Kui and Kui Hejin should be anxious. Just as they were walking out, they heard noisy noises coming from outside. She frowned, what on earth is going on? She heard the voice, which seemed vaguely familiar. How dare you stop me? Our young lady is Miss Chen. If Master Wei finds out, you won't be able to survive. This girl, our agency cannot let anyone in without sending a greeting card in advance and without our young master's instructions. Girl, you said your lady is Miss Chen, but we don't know who Miss Chen is. The two doormen naturally knew about Miss Chen and her maid, who had come to their agency to cause trouble before. In the past, their young master used to spoil them. I don't know since when the young master stopped mentioning them, and he doesn't tolerate them anymore. If they make trouble like this again, he can't let them in. Mr. Wei is only so special to Mrs. Zhang. Although they are door guards, they still feel that Mrs. Zhang is many times better than Miss Chen. Moreover, Mrs. Zhang also rescued her brother from the agency. Zhang Ziluo also heard it at this moment. Isn't this Miss Chen Huidi's maid Fanko? Has it been quiet for a long time and is it causing trouble again? She also knew that Chen Huidi had broken his leg before. It had been a long time. Did he come to see Wei Xingyi again after his leg healed? But thinking of this Miss Chen, a cold murderous intent flashed across Zhang Ziluo's eyes. Chen Huidi wanted to find someone to deal with her before. When Wei Xingyi walked out of the door, Fanko came to Wei Xingyi excitedly and said, "Young Master Wei, it's me. Young Master Wei, you won't forget Our Lady, right?" Looking at Fanko's attitude, Wei Xingyi frowned and said, "Fanko, you are not at home to take care of your lady, why are you here?" "Young Master Wei, please go and see Our Lady. Our Lady's legs have been in bad condition and the pain is severe." Wei Xingyi said, "Then you should ask a doctor. It's useless for me to go." Wei Xingyi has been busy with many things for such a long time. Chen Huidi no longer comes to make trouble and hang on him. His mind has become much clearer, and he is no longer led by Chen Huidi. End of chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fen Yuan Candy. Chapter 263. Fanko said in a complaining and accusing tone, "Young Master Wei, you didn't treat Our Lady like this before. Young Master Wei, are you deliberately ignoring Our Lady because she broke her leg? Or, it's because of them, because of this woman?" Fanko pointed at Kui Qingkai next to Zhang Ziluo. He even stared at Kui Qingkai with angry eyes. Zhang Ziluo laughed angrily and blocked Kui Qingkai behind her. "A maid dares to point at others at will. Don't say it has nothing to do with us. Even if it does, what does it matter to you? What position and qualifications do you have as a maid to criticize others? Your Miss Chen no longer wants to be famous. What kind of relationship does Wei Xingyi have with your lady? He still has to care about your lady's affairs. Zhang Ziluo doesn't want to meddle in other people's business at all. Even if it had something to do with Wei Xingyi, she didn't want to get involved, let alone Wei Xingyi's personal matter. But if Kui Qingkai is implicated, Zhang Ziluo will never allow it. Zhang Ziluo is very defensive at heart. As soon as Wei Xingyi heard Zhang Ziluo's words, he knew that his master was angry. He said angrily, "You, a maid, dare to come to my agency to cause trouble? Who gave you the courage? I have nothing to do with your lady at all. You are deliberately looking for trouble because you think your lady doesn't want her reputation anymore. Neither you nor your lady are allowed to appear at the door of my agency from now on." As he said that, Wei Xingyi said to the guard, "If you see them in the future, drive them out. If they don't leave, report them directly to the official. If your lady doesn't want to be famous anymore, just feel free to make trouble here. The bigger the noise, the better. Don't think I'm going to do this." Wei Xingyi said, clenching his fists and looking like he was taking action. "Don't think that I really don't hit women. If it's too much, I'll hit her just the same." For Wei Xingyi, the master is an elder he must respect, that is, the existence of relatives. This grass is nothing. Moreover, after this period of calming down, and the fact that the master gave him a storybook to read, his mind became clearer. I felt that Ms. Chen's words in the past were very strange both inside and outside of her words. Just like what the storybook says, use scheming methods on him. Fanko's face turned livid with anger and she almost fainted. Wei Xingyi doesn't care about her. The guard even held a wooden stick and stretched out his hand to drive away the grass. "Let's go, don't come in front of our agency." "That's right, if you don't feel embarrassed, we still feel embarrassed." The guard was naturally happy after hearing what the young master said. It feels like the young master finally woke up and started to stand up, no longer being led around by this scheming woman. They all have a feeling of relief. They were all angry when they saw Miss Chen's attitude towards their young master Wei. In the past, their young master Wei was so kind to Miss Chen, but Miss Chen treated their young master Wei in a distant manner. Wei Xiao did not give them a clear attitude at all, and they were all anxious to death. Now I find that there is no comparison between Miss Chen and Mrs. Zhang. Wei Xingyi personally sent Zhang Ziluo and Kui Qingkai to the ox cart and watched them go back. As for the so-called Fanko, he didn't give him any face this time. When we walked back, the sun was almost setting. Zhang Ziluo and Kui Qingkai went to the market to have a look first. There are not many people at the market. There were only a few old people squatting there, waiting for someone to come over and buy their things. Kui Qingkai saw many old people wearing shabby and patched clothes, squatting behind the stalls obediently, not shouting, just waiting for someone to pass by to see if they wanted to buy anything. Perhaps it was getting dark, but an old lady stood up and prepared to go back. The old lady next to me said, "Let's go back now." "Well, I'm going back. Our villages are far apart. It takes more than an hour to walk home. It's already dark when we get home. If we don't go back now, the road will be difficult to walk after dark," the old lady said, picking up 2 boxes of zucchini and preparing to go back. Another old lady looked at the crops in the bag in front of her, sighed, and was about to put the stall away. Zhang Ziluo happened to be sharp-eyed and saw what was exposed in the bag. She hurriedly walked over and said, "Old man, wait a minute, are you selling mung beans?" When the old lady saw someone coming to ask, she said happily, Yes, girl, I have mung beans, red beans and soybeans here. Look at what you buy, the prices are very cheap." Zhang Ziluo took a look and saw that the beans were all very clean and the particles were in good quality. "How did you sell it at this price?" The old lady said, "It's 4 cents per caddy, girl, if you buy more, I will make it cheaper and give you more." 4 cents per pound is really cheap. Zhang Ziluo said directly, "Weigh the mung beans and soybeans for me." Well, the old lady was happily preparing to weigh the mung beans and soybeans. Zhang Ziluo looked at the zucchini next to her and said, "Old man, how much does your zucchini cost per pound?" The old lady picked up 2 baskets of zucchini and was about to go back, when suddenly she heard someone ask. She was stunned, turned around and put down the pole excitedly, and said, "Girl, this is a melon I grew at home. It's delicious and can be eaten in stir-fry. It's delicious and cheap, only a penny per caddy." They also want to sell a little more of the crops they grow at home, and a penny is also very important to them. The family has been busy harvesting crops recently, so they can only go out to sell things. Although the weather is very hot, they are not afraid of the heat in order to make some money by selling some things. Zhang Ziluo said, "Call me the name of this frame." When the old lady heard this, she was immediately excited. "Girl, wait a moment, I'll lend you a big scale to weigh you." Generally, people who come to buy things only buy 1 or 2 melons, and no one buys a basket at once. This made the old lady very excited. "I thought I would have to carry so many things and walk 10 miles home, but I never expected to sell a basket of melons." Just like that, Zhang Ziluo bought 8 pounds of mung beans, 12 pounds of soybeans, and a basket of melons. A total of 162 penny was spent. To Zhang Ziluo, more than 100 pennies is not expensive nowadays. But to the two old ladies, it has different meanings. One of them took 80 pennies and the other 82 pennies, and they kept thanking Zhang Ziluo. Even the eyes are red. Zhang Ziluo didn't feel that she had done anything, so she waved her hand and prepared to go back. He seemed to have thought of something. "I remember that there are people harvesting grain nowadays. Someone should be harvesting the beans you sell, right?" The old lady explained, "Those people only harvest wheat, corn, and peanuts, not beans." Zhang Ziluo was thoughtful, and then she and Kui Qingkai took a bullock cart back. Kui Qingkai looked at the horned melons in the basket and said, "Sister-in-law, do we really use these horned melons for cooking? The vegetables in their yard are enough to last for a long time." Zhang Ziluo said, "These horned melons are not only used for cooking. I bought them to make horned melon pancakes. They are delicious. Besides, these are easy to store." In fact, even though she said this, Zhang Ziluo knew in her heart that she just didn't want to see the two old ladies going back with the poles. She is not so kind and helps with everything. "I happen to want to eat these things, so I bought some." The two old ladies looked at Zhang Ziluo's figure. The melon seller wiped away his tears and choked with sobs. "That little lady is a good person. I thought I could only take these melons back." End of this chapter. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 264. The two old ladies were very grateful. They really thought they were going home carrying these things. But now they actually sold more than half of the things and made more than 80 pence. Both of them couldn't believe it, and they were a little excited holding the copper coins in their hands. "I will pack up my things and go home. I will tell my family that I have made money. They will also be happy." "Yes, let's go, let's pack up and go home." The two old ladies picked up the remaining things. The poles were much lighter. Perhaps they were in a good mood, and they felt that their steps were much lighter. When Zhang Ziluo and Kui Qingkai returned home, it was already dark. Kui Hejin had already gone home, and the two of them had prepared dinner. Mrs. Kui asked, "Why did you come back so late? Are you okay?" Normally, Zhang Ziluo would go home before dark. It is not peaceful outside now, and Mrs. Kui is a little worried. Kui Qingkai said, "It's okay. The main reason is that my sister-in-law is very good and has been busy with a lot of things. We sold soap and preserved eggs. Only my sister-in-law can do it. She also sold 2 dishes, making a total of $62. It's more than 2. Kui Qingkai happily shared this with her mother and eldest brother. As if thinking of something, Kui Qingkai curled her lips and said, "Miss Chen really has a brain problem. She asked her maid to come to the agency to cause trouble. It has nothing to do with me or my sister-in-law, but she pointed her finger at us and said something really ugly." Hearing this, Kui Hejin moved his hands for a moment, and an icy cold light flashed across his eyes. Mrs. Kui asked worriedly, "Are you okay?" "It's okay, Mr. Wei is protecting my sister-in-law." "This way, my sister-in-law can find good people to harvest the wheat and crops, and we don't have to worry. Oh, by the way, everyone likes the cattail fans made by my sister-in-law, and she even ordered 21 fans from us. Mrs. Kui was slightly surprised. Everyone has ordered fans from you. Kui Kinkai said, that's not true. They thought the fans made by my sister-in-law were useful, strong in the wind, and light in the hand, so they bought them from us. My sister-in-law said they cost 10 cents each, and many people bought them. My sister-in-law said I would take advantage of these 2 days to knit more and give them to the people who ordered the fans. My sister-in-law bought me medicinal materials with the money she earned, and she spent a lot of money on it. Oh, by the way, my sister-in-law also bought mung beans, soybeans, and this kind of melon. My sister-in-law said it can be made into cakes. Zhang Ziluo smiled as she listened to what Kui Kinkai said to Mrs. Kui. She didn't have to say it. In the past, when she came back, she would talk to Mrs. Kui about setting up a stall during the day, so as not to worry them. Just as Zhang Ziluo was about to unload the things from the ox cart, Kui Hejin had already put down what he was doing and came over. He naturally moved the things down without letting Zhang Ziluo do anything. When Kui Hejin approached him just now, he had an elegant and subtle fragrance on his body. It was her familiar aura of greed that made Zhang Ziluo's heart beat a few times. Zhang Ziluo looked at his noble figure, swallowed her saliva and said, "Is everything okay with you in the school?" Kui Hejin lowered his head and looked deeply at Zhang Ziluo, his throat rolled slightly, and he said in a low voice and hoarsely, "Well, it's pretty good." Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "That's good." After a pause, Kui Hejin whispered, "Don't be angry for irrelevant people. She has nothing to fear." Zhang Ziluo was stunned for a moment and blinked before realizing what Kui Hejin said. Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "Well, I know, then Miss Chen's fuss will be nothing. I heard that her leg was broken a long time ago, but she has never recovered." When Kui Hejin lowered his head, a dangerous dark light flashed across his eyes. That man wanted to attack Ziluo, so he would naturally not let her go. Her legs won't get better. Kui Hejin seems to be cold and indifferent to everything. But only those who care very much about themselves will use extraordinary means. However, Zhang Ziluo didn't know about this. After putting down their things, Zhang Ziluo and Kui Kinkai washed their hands and ate. After having dinner and washing up, Zhang Ziluo returned to the room. But she was not idle either. Instead, she lit candles and weaved a cattail leaf fan beside her. When Kui Hejin washed up and entered the house, he saw Zhang Ziluo busy. She walked over and said softly, "After a busy day, take a break and stop working." Zhang Ziluo said, "It's okay. I'm just idle. It's still early and I won't be able to sleep for a while. If you are sleepy, go to sleep first." If Zhang Ziluo doesn't sleep, Kui Hejin doesn't want to sleep either. He just wants to stay with her. So Kui Hejin sat next to him and read a book. Zhang Ziluo was slightly surprised and said, "Aren't you sleepy?" "Not sleepy." Zhang Ziluo nodded, thought for a while and said, "I went to Wei Xingyi from the agency today and asked him to find someone to help harvest the crops. In the spring, the yield of potatoes we planted was very high, about 1,000 kilograms per acre. I'm worried about this. The yield will shock a lot of people. I don't feel comfortable asking others to help me collect it. So I went to find the people from the agency. Wei Xingyi said that the people from the agency are tight-lipped and won't talk nonsense. Besides, I have rescued some people before, so they should help keep secrets. These were not discussed with you in advance." Kui Hejin said, "It's already hard work to worry about these things. Just do whatever you want and don't worry about anything else. Also, other people may not think of potatoes as food, but as vegetables. Just like a carrot." When Zhang Ziluo heard this, her expression changed. "Yes, why didn't I think of it? Everyone has never eaten potatoes, so naturally they don't know that potatoes are food. For many people, many crops growing underground are vegetables, such as radish and mustard. In this way, Zhang Ziluo felt relieved. Zhang Ziluo made cattail fans very quickly. Time passed little by little, and Kui Hejin saw that she was still busy and had no intention of sleeping. Hand out his hand, he picked up the dry cattails next to him and said, "Teach me how to braid the cattails, and I will braid them together. It will be faster this way." Zhang Ziluo shook her head and said, "It's okay, it's just a little bit, it will be compiled soon, you don't need to help." Zhang Ziluo felt that Kui Hejin's slender, jade-like hands should hold a pen and write instead of doing such rough work. So she never taught him to knit in the first place. Kui Hejin King Grunt said, "Since I said so, let's edit it tomorrow. It's getting late, so you should go to bed early." Zhang Ziluo moved her hands and was stunned for a moment. Actually, she didn't feel sleepy even though she was busy. But she probably understood at this time that if she didn't sleep, Kui Hejin would probably accompany her. Although he said nothing, he was actually very attentive and always accompanied her silently. Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, "Okay, let's take a rest early." She put her things away and then went to bed with Kui Hejin. Kui Hejin was lying on the bed, unable to sleep. He was thinking about what his sister had just said to him. Say what the people in the town said in front of Ziluo. The matter of supporting the family and making money should indeed be his business, rather than letting Ziluo follow her so hard. End of chapter. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 265. While Kui Hejin was thinking about this, Zhang Ziluo had already laid down and fell asleep. Perhaps she was busy with a lot of things during the day and she didn't feel sleepy, but as soon as she lay down and relaxed her whole body, she quickly fell asleep. It's just that Zhang Ziluo was a little dishonest when sleeping. When it's cold, it's easy for her to push off the quilt while sleeping. Kui Hejin always got up in the middle of the night to cover her with a quilt to see if she was cold. Once she had a slight sleep loss, although it would be better in 2 or 3 days. But Kui Hejin would also habitually help her check whether the pillow was in good condition. Kui Hejin didn't say anything about this, he just naturally wanted to do this for her. The weather is hot now, and their beds are covered with linen mats. The thin quilt covering the body. Maybe Zhang Ziluo felt hot and fell asleep, so she pulled off her thin shirt. But it still seemed to be very hot, so I couldn't help but go to a cooler place. So she turned over several times and couldn't help but lean into Kui Hejin's arms. Hold out your hand and hug him directly. Kui Hejin has a cool constitution and has a refreshing jade-like aura with a slight coolness. Zhang Ziluo hugged her and felt very cool and comfortable. She even put one leg on Kui Hejin's body, arched her head on his shoulder, found a comfortable position, and continued to sleep soundly. Kui Hejin looked at the person in his arms, helpless and doting. He smiled and shook his head slightly. After a while, Kui Hejin took a breath. This girl is like this, it is really sweet torture. But he couldn't bear to let her go, he just wanted to let her sleep peacefully. Just like that, Kui Hejin didn't dare to move for a while, for fear of waking Zhang Ziluo. As if thinking of something, he hesitantly reached out and gently stroked Zhang Ziluo's hair. "Tell me, what should I do with you?" Kui Hejin caressed Zhang Ziluo's long, silky hair, feeling like she couldn't put it down. After a while, Kui Hejin's eyes were filled with a look of sadness. He murmured softly, "If I had known that this would happen, I wouldn't have said that to you at that time. What if I say that I regret saying that?" The words he said to her on that wedding night. He still remembers it clearly. "Now that you have become my wife, I will be responsible for you, and I will give you the respect that a wife deserves. I'm just sorry, but I can't give you anything else." He thought about it and felt a stinging pain in his heart. Perhaps because of this, She always kept a certain distance from him. Both mother and sister thought they were husband and wife. But he knew that they had not consummated their marriage. How should he approach her? At this time, she was leaning in his arms, but he felt timid. Out of love comes sorrow, out of love comes fear. But even so, he still wanted to hold her tightly by his side. After a while, Kui Hejin slowly calmed down the pain in his heart after smelling the fragrance of the girl in his arms. Kui Hejin was also afraid of Zhang Ziluo's fever, so he held her gently with one hand, picked up the cattail leaf fan next to him with the other hand, and fanned her gently. Just to make her sleep more comfortable. Zhang Ziluo naturally didn't know this. She slept deeply. And she had a dream that night. Zhang Ziluo had a dream. When Kui Hejin was teaching in Shishi Academy, a black-clad killer broke into the academy. And all of a sudden 3 killers in black appeared. They held swords in their hands and attacked Kui Hejin directly. Kui Hejin quickly avoided the attack of the black-clothed killer. Even though Kui Hejin didn't have a sword in his hand, he was extremely fast, as if he were just a glimpse of a giant, noble and fierce. The 3 killers in black were extremely skilled, but even if they attacked Kui Hejin, they still couldn't take advantage. Seeing that they could not deal with Kui Hejin, they went to harm the students in the academy. In this way, Kui Hejin acted with some caution. So much so that, in order to protect the students, he was slashed several times with swords. One of the men in black knew how to use poison, and the sword was poisonous, so that the place where Kui Hejin was stabbed by the sword was poisoned. He cannot exert his full strength. Immediately afterwards, the 4th person suddenly took action in the dark and pierced Kui Hejin's body with a sword. No, do not want. Zhang Ziluo woke up directly from her sleep. She sat up directly, her face turned pale in panic. Kui Hejin stood up immediately. Ziluo, what's wrong with you? Are you dreaming again? Kui Hejin knew that if Zhang Ziluo had a nightmare, she would wake up. He was a little worried about her. Zhang Ziluo heard a familiar voice and turned to look at Kui Hejin. Her tears flowed down uncontrollably. Hejin, you're okay, you're okay. She looked at Kui Hejin in fear and did not dare to get close. Only tears flowed silently and sadly. The sharp pain in the center of my mouth was still so obvious in my sleep. That scene simply broke her heart. Watching Zhang Ziluo cry, Kui Hejin felt as if his heart had been pricked by needles. Be good, it's okay, I'm here, I'm here. Kui Hejin gently coaxed Zhang Ziluo and stretched out his slender jade-like hand to gently wipe away her tears. Be good, don't cry, don't cry. It was no use at all, Zhang Ziluo cried hard. Crying so sadly. Kui Hejin couldn't bear to see her cry. He felt as if her tears were falling on his heart, burning his heart and making his heart hurt severely. Zhang Ziluo hugged Kui Hejin hard. Don't let anything happen to you, don't let anything happen to you. If something happens to him, she will collapse. In this life, she worked so hard just to be good to him and protect him. Suddenly being hugged so hard by Zhang Ziluo, Kui Hejin was startled and her body stiffened. He also reached out and hugged Zhang Ziluo, patting her back gently and gently. I'm fine, it was just a dream, not real. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Kui Hejin was very patient and took the trouble to coax Zhang Ziluo. After a while, he let her go slightly, lowered his head, lifted her chin with his hand, and wiped her tears. Just looking at her tear-filled eyes, looking aggrieved and sad, he lowered his head uncontrollably and gently kissed away the tears from the corners of her eyes. Kiss it little by little, like a treasure. Zhang Ziluo was startled by Kui Hejin's sudden movement. Her heartbeat accelerated instantly, and her eyelashes trembled fiercely, fanning gently like a small fan. Kui Hejin kissed her tears and touched her thick eyelashes like feathers and seemed to touch his heartstrings. Kui Hejin's throat rolled violently. Hold her tightly with some restraint, but slowly and uncontrollably pushed her harder, and then harder. I wish I could rub it into my body. Zhang Ziluo was stunned and forgot to react. I feel like my heart is going to jump out of my chest. She only felt that at this moment, his hand was so hot that it made her numb as if she had received an electric shock. Zhang Ziluo was already very beautiful, and now she was even more delicate and bright, especially with tears in her eyes at this moment. She had an even more charming beauty, like a charming night demon, which could easily seduce people's hearts. Kui Hejin looked at her like this, with a hint of red in her narrow eyes, and the ends of her eyes were slightly raised, with a thrilling and stunning sense of charm. End of chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Space Doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 266. Kui Hejin hugged Zhang Ziluo tightly, wishing he could rub her deep into his heart. At this moment, he seems to be very different from his usual cold and indifferent appearance. It's like a cold banished immortal fell into the mortal world. Zhang Ziluo looked at Kui Hejin's beautiful and picturesque face and met his breathtaking eyes, and she couldn't help but indulge in it. Zhang Ziluo was immersed in his picturesque eyes, as if she had forgotten to breathe and react. This is the first time two people have been so close. Although his lips fell on her eyebrows, he just kissed away her tears, but it also made her heart tremble violently. It made her feel uncontrollably dry. Crane hibiscus. As soon as Zhang Ziluo spoke, even she was startled. Her voice was delicate and soft, and she felt very shy when she heard it. My face felt extremely hot. Zhang Ziluo was completely diverted at this time and couldn't care less about crying. The tears were all wiped away by Kui Hejin's gentle kiss. She lay shyly in Kui Hejin's arms, wishing she could find a hole in the ground to crawl into. Kui Hejin hugged Zhang Ziluo and tried hard to control the wild beast surging in his body. At first I thought he was a person with a pure heart and few desires, but it turns out that he also has emotions and desires when it comes to the people he cares about. Kui Hejin stroked her hair gently, his lips fell on her ear, and he whispered hoarsely, "What's wrong, eh?" Kui Hejin's final voice rose slightly when he spoke. Kui Hejin also tried hard to control his voice. He had restrained himself, restored etiquette, and cultivated his character since childhood, but once some of the shackles in his body were broken, he was afraid of scaring his little wife. Listening to Kui Hejin's questions, Zhang Ziluo suddenly came back to her senses. She grabbed Kui Hejin's hand and said in a panic but seriously, "Can you not go to school during the day?" Kui Hejin was startled. "What's wrong?" Zhang Ziluo naturally couldn't talk about dreams. Furthermore, she knew that with Kui Hejin's intelligence, finding other reasons would not be very convincing. Zhang Ziluo could only look at Kui Hejin with persistent eyes and said, "If I want you to stay with me at home, will you agree to it?" Kui Hejin lowered his head and looked deeply at Zhang Ziluo, looking at her expression thoughtfully. Although he knew that she must be hiding something in her heart, Kui Hejin couldn't bear to make her unhappy. He said warmly, "Okay, if you need me to accompany you, I will stay with you at home." Zhang Ziluo breathed a sigh of relief when she saw Kui Hejin agreed. This way you don't have to worry about anything. As long as Kui Hejin is by her side, she can protect Kui Hejin's safety. Those killers are targeting Kui Hejin. If Kui Hejin doesn't go to school, he should be fine. However, Zhang Ziluo is still worried that the students in the school will be affected. Kui Hejin said softly, "But after breakfast, I still have to go to the school to ask for leave from Mr. Li in the morning." "You can't go to school without saying anything." Originally, he still had classes. Zhang Ziluo felt that she did look a bit unreasonable like this. But there was nothing she could do. He must think about Kui Hejin's safety. Zhang Ziluo understands this. She nodded and said, Yes, it should be. In this case, I will help you go to school to ask for leave tomorrow morning, so you don't have to go to school. When Zhang Ziluo said this, she felt a little guilty. I feel like Kui Hejin will definitely be able to discover something. If he pressed him further, she wouldn't know what to say for a while. But Kui Hejin simply didn't ask further. Kui Hejin just looked down at Zhang Ziluo. He just felt that his little wife was lowering her head in front of him, just like the little kids in school who made mistakes. Kui Hejin said helplessly and dotingly, "Then I'll let you do it. No matter what the reason is, no matter what she has on her mind, she can do it if she wants to. As long as she is happy." Zhang Ziluo was slightly surprised. She didn't expect Kui Hejin to be so easy to talk to. Zhang Ziluo was so happy that she put her arms around his neck and said with a crooked smile, "Hejin, you are so kind. Isn't it called husband?" Zhang Ziluo followed Shen Ruliu and said, "Yes, husband, you are so kind." Looking at her happy look, Kui Hejin laughed dumbly, but there was a look of doting on her face and eyes. He gently touched her hair and said, "Are you happy like this?" Zhang Ziluo nodded obediently like a little girl, looking very obedient. As long as Kui Hejin will be fine, she will naturally be happy. Looking at her happy look, Kui Hejin's mood couldn't help but get better. Just watching her cry, his heart ached so much that he couldn't bear it. Kui Hejin reached out and gently wiped the corners of her eyes. "Are you still crying?" Zhang Ziluo shook her head and said, "Stop crying." As she spoke, she wiped her eyes and said, "I just made you laugh." Won't. How could he laugh at her? It's just that he couldn't bear to see her cry. Zhang Ziluo had nothing to worry about now. She yawned and felt a little sleepy. Looking at her sleepy look, Kui Hejin said, "It's still early before dawn, let's sleep a little longer." On weekdays, Zhang Ziluo always gets up early and goes to bed late, busy with the family. She will not rest even if I ask her to. Only will I get a good sleep at night. So since she was sleepy, she had to put aside any big things and sleep was the most important thing. Zhang Ziluo nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. She lay down again and Kui Hejin covered her with a thin quilt. She said confusedly, "Well, you sleep too." After saying this, Zhang Ziluo fell asleep immediately. Seeing her like this, Kui Hejin felt helpless and helpless. After seeing that she was sleeping soundly, he quietly got out of bed, went to the bathroom, and took a cold shower. Just then went back to the room. Perhaps Kui Hejin felt cool because he took a cold shower, and his body was cold. Zhang Ziluo felt the coolness, and she couldn't help but turn over and hugged Kui Hejin as she fell asleep. She had no consciousness at all. Kui Hejin took a breath. But he couldn't bear to push her away. He reached out his hand and hugged her gently. Looking at her sleeping peacefully and her peaceful sleeping face, Kui Hejin's eyebrows became very gentle. "Have a good night's sleep." Early the next morning, when Zhang Ziluo got up, she found that Kui Hejin had already gotten up. Her face turned red when she thought about how she cried and made trouble last night. Not to mention Kui Hejin who made Kui Hejin coax her repeatedly. She covered her face with her hands, wishing she could find a hole in the ground to crawl into. I don't know if Kui Hejin would laugh at her during the day. After a while of mental preparation, I got up and took a shower. Kui Hejin was chopping firewood in the yard. Mrs. Kui and Kui Kinkai were busy preparing breakfast. Mrs. Kui saw that Zhang Ziluo had woken up and asked, "Ziluo is awake, Hejin went to fetch well water early in the morning. He knew that you were afraid of the heat, so he said that he wanted to wash himself with the well water that he had just brought back to cool him down. Oh, by the way, what do you want to eat in the morning? I just washed the rice and am going to cook some porridge. I don't know what staple food to make." Zhang Ziluo's expression changed and she said, "Mom, the zucchini I bought yesterday can be cut into shreds and mixed with flour to make cakes." Let me write a chapter first and let everyone know. I have a headache, so I can only update the second chapter during the day. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 267. Thinking of the way Kui Hejin took care of her last night and what Mrs. Kui said just now, she felt warm in her heart. Zhang Ziluo was thinking about making something delicious for Kui Hejin. I also want to be nice to him. Mrs. Kui was stunned when Zhang Ziluo mentioned the melon cake. In her understanding, this melon is just a vegetable. It tastes average when eaten stir-fried. Can you make cakes? Mrs. Kui understands that as long as it is the food Ziluo studies, it must be delicious. She has never eaten vegetable pancakes. Kui Kinkai's eyes brightened. The food made by my sister-in-law is simply delicious. Sister-in-law, let me help you and give you a shot. Zhang Ziluo said, you don't need to sleep more. Kui Kinkai said, I'm used to getting up early, and I can't fall asleep even if I lie in bed for a long time. Zhang Ziluo thought for a while and said, if you want to make cakes, it's best to make some porridge as well. They are also used to making some soup or porridge for breakfast. Kui Kinkai knew that Zhang Ziluo could make porridge of various flavors. I don't know what she is going to do. Zhang Ziluo looked at the rice that Mrs. Kui had washed and thought for a moment, since rice is used to make porridge, let's make preserved egg and lean meat porridge. Speaking of preserved egg and lean meat porridge, Zhang Ziluo has never made it, and they have never eaten it. Mrs. Kui remembered what Ziluo said about preserved egg and lean meat porridge when she was making preserved eggs. But none of them have eaten it. Mrs. Kui said, do you need preserved eggs? Zhang Ziluo nodded and said, well, the four of us will eat it. Let's cut 4 preserved eggs and put them in. Kui Kinkai said, I'll go get the preserved eggs from the jar. She looked forward to the food cooked by her sister-in-law. Good. Kui Kinkai ran to get the preserved eggs. Zhang Ziluo picked up the green onions and washed by Mrs. Kui next to her and began to cut them. Cut the green onion into chopped green onions and cut the into shreds. Cut the pork into minced meat. When Zhang Ziluo did this, her movements were very fast and her knife skills were very neat. At this moment, Kui Kinkai also washed the preserved eggs. Is it used like this? Zhang Ziluo said, first boil the preserved eggs in a pot, and then cut them into cubes. Mrs. Kui said, then I'll light the fire and cook the preserved eggs. They'll cook very quickly. Mrs. Kui put water in the pot and boiled the preserved eggs. Ziluo, can you cook just 4? Zhang Ziluo thought for a while and said, let's cook 4 more so that we can make a plate of cold dishes for dinner. Good. With that said, Kui Kinkai went to get the preserved eggs to wash again. Zhang Ziluo washed the horned melon and beat it into silk with a beater. The thread beating machine did not exist at this time. Zhang Ziluo asked a blacksmith to make it. It is much more convenient to make silk in this way. Cut the melon in half, scoop out the flesh, and beat it into shreds. Beat it into shreds and put it in a basin, then add salt, pepper powder and other seasonings and stir. Add chopped green onion, mix well, and marinate for a while. Add in the eggs and mix well. Add appropriate amount of flour and appropriate amount of water to make a paste. Kui Kinkai looked on with curiosity. She has been here for more than a month and has never seen her sister-in-law making this kind of cake, so she was quite curious about it. She thought it was a vegetable, but she didn't expect it could be made into pancakes. I don't know how it tastes either. Kui Kinkai asked, sister-in-law, are you going to fry it next? I'll light the fire. Fortunately, the stovehouse has 2 pots, so you can use them for cooking without any problem. Zhang Ziluo said, well, this pot is used to make pancakes, and that pot is used to cook porridge. Kui Kinkai quickly picked up firewood and burned another pot at the stove. After the pan is hot, add oil, then pour in a little batter and brown both sides. After frying one piece, take it out and put it on a plate, and then continue to fry it. A strong fragrance comes out. Smell good. Kui Kinkai was obviously not hungry early in the morning, but now she was salivating from the smell. I feel hungry. Zhang Ziluo said, it's a little hot when it comes out of the pot. It won't be hot after a while. You and your mother can taste it first. No, no, let's eat together. But, sister-in-law, I heard from my eldest brother that he has something to do today, so he won't go to school. Kui Kinkai was also a little puzzled. Her eldest brother had never been a truant before. He was very self-disciplined. In the past, studying and taking classes could be done rain or shine. When I came here, I went to take classes with the students. If I said I didn't want to go, I wouldn't go. Ah, oh, that's it? Zhang Ziluo was stunned, but she didn't expect that Kui Hejin didn't say it was her idea. It would be embarrassing to say that she wanted Kui Hejin to stay with her at home. Kui Kinkai couldn't help but think about it. Could it be possible that what she said to her eldest brother last night was heard by her eldest brother? Actually, she didn't say anything, she just told her elder brother what the women in the town were saying. Ms. Zhang, it's not easy for you. You used to buy bread, but now you sell soap. What about your man? If your man can make money, you don't have to show your face in the hot weather. Yes, that's what she said. Ziluo, the preserved eggs are cooked, what should I do? Zhang Ziluo said, Mom, I know how to fry pancakes, but I can't use my hands to cut the preserved eggs. You can help cut the preserved eggs into cubes. Good. Ms. Kui opened the pot, took out the preserved eggs with a slotted spoon, and then poured them into cold water. This way it is easier to peel without burning it. Next, she peeled the preserved eggs, peeled 4 preserved eggs, and then cut the preserved eggs into dices on the chopping board. Ziluo, is this okay? Mom, put some rice and water in the pot, just like you would normally cook rice porridge. When it is half cooked, add preserved egg, diced ginger, shredded pork, and cook. When it's cooked, just add a little seasoning. After saying this, Ms. Kui understood and started cooking. Soon, breakfast was ready. Zhang Ziluo went to the yard and called Kui Hejin, you should take a rest and eat first. Seeing that Kui Hejin has been busy, Zhang Ziluo also feels a little distressed. Kui Hejin put down his axe, and looked at Zhang Ziluo with a half-smile. Zhang Ziluo's face turned red when she was looked at like this. Are you kidding me? Kui Hejin smiled and said warmly, no, how could I give it up? Yeah, I can't bear to laugh at her, I just think she's cute and tight sometimes. Zhang Ziluo always feels like being pampered and pampered. My heart started to beat with excitement. Then you think I'm being unreasonable? No, as long as you are happy. Yeah, he just wants to make her happy. But he can't give Ziluo glory and wealth now. If you don't want to go out to do business, you don't have to do it. I'll support the family. His hands are now healed and he can do more things without leaving his family hungry. Zhang Ziluo shook her head and said, no, I think this is good, and every day is quite fulfilling. Compared with modern times, business at this time was not so complicated, and there were not many people who knew how to cook food, so it was easier to set up stalls and do business. Perhaps because he is here, she also likes this place and this era. Even the air you breathe is fresh. Living here, the pace is slow, very comfortable, and it feels like a vacation. Would you mind if I do business in public? She doesn't care about anyone's opinion, only his opinion. The words of those women yesterday also made her think seriously. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Candy. Chapter 268. She also thought about it seriously. Kui Hejin is indeed a scholar, and he has received different concepts since he was a child. Scholars pay most attention to reputation, and they should look down on businessmen based on their status as scholars, peasants, industrialists, and merchants. Even if they don't feel anything wrong, it would not be good if their colleagues would criticize them for these things if they become officials in the imperial examination in the future. So she also cares about Kui Hejin's thoughts. Just asking her to stop doing business is impossible. She must first have herself before she can repay the favor. When Zhang Ziluo spoke, she looked at Kui Hejin seriously. For some reason, Kui Hejin seemed to understand the look in her eyes. His heart tightened, and he grabbed Zhang Ziluo's hand with all his strength, as if this could hold her tightly. Kui Hejin said seriously, "I won't mind." I said, "Whatever you want to do it and I will support you. It doesn't matter what others say, what matters is that you are happy." As long as she stays with him, as long as she doesn't want to leave. Kui Hejin always felt like she wanted to leave. At this moment, his heart felt as if it had been pricked by a needle, and he felt a pinching pain. He looked at Zhang Ziluo steadily, his eyes were very captivating. Zhang Ziluo's heart trembled violently, feeling that his eyes were like a whirlpool, and like a net, enveloping her so densely that she could not escape. Zhang Ziluo shook her head quickly. She must have been overthinking it. She must be possessed by a demon. Maybe he never considered her as his wife. Just because of responsibility. Yes, he has such a strong sense of responsibility, and he only treats her out of responsibility, because he is soft and kind-hearted. He has no memory of his previous life, so how could he suddenly have feelings? Besides, he grew up in the capital. In that part of the capital, a person like him, who comes from an outstanding family, has an outstanding appearance, and is extremely talented, must be favored by many noble ladies. I've probably seen all kinds of beautiful women. She was a woman from the countryside, and she forced him to marry her out of kindness. So every time Zhang Ziluo was about to fall out of control, she always tried to keep herself awake. Then if the world is peaceful in the future, if you take the scientific examination and become an official, your classmates or colleagues will laugh at you. Kui Hejin said, just like a person knows whether his drinking water is warm or cold, what other people say is their business and I don't care. Because they are all strangers, and you are my wife. Is the most important person to him. What's more, when the Kui family was exiled, the rumors were even more intense and the verbal attacks they received were also severe. Neither he nor his mother will care. Looking at Kui Hejin's serious expression, Zhang Ziluo smiled softly. I knew you were good. Yes, in the last life, for her sake, he didn't even care about his reputation. Even if he was regarded as a traitor, he didn't care. Just to save her. Seeing the smile on Zhang Ziluo's face, Kui Hejin felt that the morning sunshine had become extremely bright. Oh, by the way, let's eat first. Speaking, Zhang Ziluo took the axe out of Kui Hejin's hand and asked him to wash his hands and eat together. I made melon pancakes and preserved egg and lean meat porridge. They are foods I have never made before. You can taste them later. Good. After Kui Hejin washed his hands, the family sat down to eat together. A bowl of preserved egg and lean meat porridge for each person. There is a lot of bread on the plate, so you can eat the bread. After sitting down, start eating. Mrs. Kui took a bite of the melon pancake and found it crispy and fragrant. The key point is that it tastes unique and delicious. This melon cake is really delicious, Kui Kinkai said. Mom, brother, try it quickly. I think the preserved egg and lean meat porridge made by my sister-in-law is delicious. I used to think that porridge was always sweet, but I didn't expect that salty porridge is just as delicious. Especially the preserved eggs in the porridge are really delicious. It turns out that the preserved eggs made this way taste better. Mrs. Kui looked at her daughter's smiling face and felt happy in her heart. When Kui Kinkai came here at first, she was taciturn and looked sad from time to time. Perhaps I ate a lot of delicious food during this period, or maybe my temperament gradually became more cheerful after following Ziluo out to set up a stall at the market. Seeing her like this, Mrs. Kui was sincerely happy. Of course Mrs. Kui herself feels that food can actually heal people's mood. Just like her, she will be in a good mood when she eats delicious food every day and sees a harmonious family. Especially when I wake up every morning, I look forward to what I will eat that day. This feeling of anticipation is really wonderful. Kui Hejin took a sip of the porridge and nodded, affirming, "Well, it's very good." Mrs. Kui couldn't help but take a few more sips as her porridge was delicious. In Beijing, preserved eggs are called baiyandan. Although the food is unique, there are still few people who like to eat it, so the business of baiyandan is average. If everyone knew that you could make porridge like this, the egg-changing business would be very good. Kui Kinkai said, "The main reason is that we don't have cooking skills like my sister-in-law. We were used to eating sweet porridge. Who would have thought that we can make salty porridge?" The same is true. Everyone is used to eating sweet porridge. Speaking of which, everyone eats porridge because it is the Labo festival, so they all make Labo porridge. Mrs. Kui said, "For the same porridge, the porridge made by Ziluo tastes better. It is 8 treasure porridge and rice porridge. The porridge stewed with Ziluo is particularly fragrant." Zhang Ziluo thought, on the one hand, it relies on heat for seasoning, and on the other hand, it mainly relies on spiritual spring water. The porridge made with Lingquan water naturally tastes different. Not only does it taste more fragrant, it also makes people more appetizing, but it also nourishes and strengthens the body. Didn't you notice that Mrs. Kui's complexion is much better and her hair is less gray? And Kui Kinkai was very haggard before, but now her skin is fair and rosy. She doesn't need rouge and gouache, and her skin has become very good, white and shiny. He is no longer haggard. It is still very important to take dietary supplements every day. Mrs. Kui and Kui Kinkai also like to eat melons. Kui Kinkai said, "The horned melon is so delicious, maybe others don't know that it can be made into cakes." Yesterday, the old lady set up a stall for a whole day, but she didn't know how many she sold. My sister-in-law bought a big basket, and the old lady was very grateful to her. The same goes for mung beans and soybeans. Zhang Ziluo explained, "If you buy mung beans, you can make mung bean jelly and eat soybeans, and you can make soy milk to drink from soybeans. There is not much food when you live in the mountains, so you can only prepare more." No one knows what the jelly Zhang Ziluo is talking about. In fact, Zhang Ziluo thinks that in the summer, if she can rent a small store and sell cold noodles and cold skin jelly, the business will be good. But that was when it was peaceful outside. The family had a full breakfast. After having a full meal, Zhang Ziluo quickly knitted a few cattail fans. Including those weaved last night, there were 8 cattail fans in total. "I'll send these cattail fans to the town first, and help Hejin go to school to ask for leave." Kui Kinkai also wanted to follow, but Zhang Ziluo didn't take her with her this time. Zhang Ziluo drove the ox cart to the town, and first went to Shishi Academy. After meeting Mr. Li, she asked for leave from Kui Hejin. Mr. Li is very easy to talk to. If you have something to do, just let him work at home and let the students prepare their homework. Zhang Ziluo thought for a while and then suggested, "Mr. Li, why don't you give the students a day off?" She was worried that the killers would come to the school without knowing that Kui Hejin was not in the school. She was worried that the killer would hurt the students. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 269. Although Kui Hejin didn't say anything, Zhang Ziluo knew that he got along well with the students and cared about them. If he learns that because he took leave and did not go to school, the students were injured that day, he will definitely blame himself. Zhang Ziluo could only find a way to persuade Mr. Li to give the students a holiday. Mr. Li said, "It would be better if we take the holiday early. The parents of the students may not be home and busy with other things. If we take the holiday rashly, the parents will not know about it, and the students may not have anywhere to go. They will go home now, maybe there is no one at home. So let everyone prepare their homework in the school, at least there will be a place to stay." Hearing what Mr. Li said, Zhang Ziluo understood that Mr. Li would not give the students a holiday rashly. If she talks about dreams, she will probably be treated as a monster. She couldn't take any chances, and besides, no one might believe her. What's more, as a woman, she cannot interfere in school affairs. The students' parents would probably be even more unhappy if they found out. Zhang Ziluo also didn't want to embarrass Mr. Li. Then, she can only deal with the killer in advance. Even if they avoid the killer today, if they want to kill Kui Hejin, they will still look for opportunities. Thinking of the 4 killers, Zhang Ziluo's eyes filled with an icy cold light. After she came out of the school, she put the ox cart in the backyard of Xinglan Hall for temporary storage. Then he found a secluded place, entered the space, changed his clothes, and went to a remote courtyard in the county. According to the scene he saw in his sleep, the 4 killers temporarily lived here. These 4 people have already stepped on the ground and are ready to start in the afternoon. But according to time, these 4 people are still here at this time. Zhang Ziluo used the power of wood to hide her aura and sneaked into the courtyard quietly. This courtyard is very remote and dilapidated, with no one around, making it suitable for killers to hide themselves. Zhang Ziluo was not in a hurry to take action, but sneaked inside first to listen. She wanted to know who sent them here. "Boss, when shall we take action?" "Wait a moment, you should prepare well first. Then Kui Hejin has already had his meridians disabled, and his martial arts skills are all gone. If there is anything to worry about, just kill him directly. That's it. Let me tell you, how convenient it would be to just break into their house in the middle of the night and kill them." The man called the boss was silent for a moment and said, "You can't enter the village. If it causes panic in the villagers and everyone flees, what will happen to the food? The master sent people to rob them immediately after they collected the grain. It can't do this or that, so why should we be in a hurry?" The person called the boss said, "You can't do things recklessly. You must understand the master's intentions and arrangements. We went to the school and killed people. There was chaos in the school. We just thought that someone was deliberately causing trouble. No one would suspect that we went to kill Kui Hejin. When Kui Hejin dies, the blame will be placed on King Duan's group, and the master will recruit the Yang family with the purpose of avenging Kui Hejin. The Yang family will be used by the master to facilitate the master to gather the southern forces." "But boss, doesn't Princess Jiamin also want us to kill that Kui Qingkai as well?" The old man said, "Kui Qingkai is fine. As long as Kui Hejin dies, killing the rest of the Kui family is as easy as squeezing an ant to death. But as long as Kui Hejin is alive, and with the help of his grandfather Hungnong Yang, he may be able to recover. My master is more worried that he will become King Duan. I heard that the young master of the Kui family is as talented and capable as anyone. Even if he has no martial arts, my master is a little afraid. Since the master is afraid, I would have killed him long ago." "Humph, it's so easy to say. The emperor sent people to watch here before. Does the master dare to act rashly? If he acts rashly, the emperor will also be afraid that the master wants to usurp the throne. Yes, our emperor is in his prime, and his masters have grown up. He is afraid that the power in his hands will be lost, so he is naturally very suspicious. So our master should do things in a secretive way, and try not to let others grasp the situation or make people suspect anything. This will also make it easier to gather power secretly." "That's right, if you accidentally let the second prince take advantage of the situation, the master's situation will be much more difficult. These 4 people expressed their opinions. Hearing these words, Zhang Zhiluo probably understood something. Because Kui Hejin also told her some things about the court before. Princess Jiamin is the princess who is a sibling of the eldest prince's mother. She is also the one who wooed the Pei family and wanted Kui Qingkai to be killed. Pei Nanshan of the Pei family entered the Imperial Academy, and he was also the appointed consort. The master mentioned by these 4 killers is the eldest prince. The eldest prince wanted to kill Kui Hejin and blame it on King Duan, so as to win over Kui Hejin's grandfather's family, the Hungnong Yang family. Hungnong's Yang family is a powerful family in the south, with great power. Although the emperor found a crime and punished the Kui family, he did not dare to kill them all. He was also afraid of offending the Yang family. Because the Yang family is a big family in the south, if they unite with the local big families to cause chaos, the emperor will not be able to live with it. Moreover, the capital is far away from the south, and the sky is high and the emperor is far away. It is not easy for the emperor to control the southern forces. Also, they just said that someone was staring at Kui Hejin. Maybe Kui Hejin and Mrs. Kui didn't dare to do anything before, because they knew someone was watching secretly. Have the people in the dark withdrawn now? The man who was secretly sent before was sent by the emperor? Zhang Zhiluo's face turned pale when she thought of this. She suddenly realized that they had been at the center of the power vortex. There is no way to avoid it. The eldest prince and Princess Jiamin, she should remember this account first. It's almost the same, and the silver needle in Zhang Yanluo's hand quickly shot out, and took the lives of 4 people. These 4 people want to kill Kui Hejin, so they must die. The silver needle flashed. Careful! 2 of the assassins fell to the ground directly, but the boss and another assassin knocked out the silver needle vigilantly. Who? They quickly became alert. One of them watched the 2 of them fall to the ground, and angrily took the spiral knife and attacked in the direction of the hidden weapon. The spiral knife in his hand is a huge disc with several scimitars on it. As soon as he moved, driven by his internal force, the knife on the weapon rotated back and forth at an extremely fast speed. It could spin off a person's arm if it touched it. Because of the internal vibration, it drives strong wind. When he saw Zhang Zhiluo's figure appearing, he shouted angrily, seeking death. Zhang Zhiluo quickly avoided it, turned around, and the silver needle in her hand flew out like flying flowers and falling rain. Borrowing the power of wood-type abilities is extremely fast. Well, the killer who just attacked Zhang Zhiluo, no matter how fast he was or how quickly he evaded, he was still hit by a silver needle, and blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Toxic. Second brother. The man called boss exclaimed, and his face changed drastically. The space doctor became the favorite of the exiled powerful minister. Author, Fenyuan Kandi. Chapter 270. Zhang Zhiluo took advantage of the second man's pause and pierced his eyebrow with the silver needle, killing him. Among these 4 people, the most powerful one is probably the killer who is called the boss. The silver needles she shot were quickly blocked by him. The reaction is quick and the internal strength is not weak. The person who sent such a master to kill Kui Hejin was really vigilant. Even if Kui Hejin lost all his internal strength and had his meridians severed, they did not dare to take it lightly. Zhang Zhiluo's expression became more and more cold and sharp, her eyes were covered with a layer of frost, full of murderous intent. Since these people want to harm Kui Hejin, she will never be merciful. You wanna die? The man called the boss held a sword in his hand and attacked Zhang Zhiluo at an extremely fast speed. Zhang Zhiluo did not evade this time, but directly fought the killer head-on. She uses a short sword to attack at close range, and every move is extremely deadly. Zhang Zhiluo fought with the killer a few times and figured out his tricks. Having figured out the tactics of these assassins, she can easily deal with them if the eldest prince sends an assassin again. Although this killer known as the boss is very strong, his internal strength is also very strong. But Zhang Ziluo's movements were faster, ruthless and accurate. Moreover, she mobilized her body's wood-type supernatural power, making her movements more sensitive, and she could even judge the direction of his attacks. Now her wood-type abilities are no longer comparable to those of the wood-type abilities in the past. Zhang Ziluo took advantage of the killer's vulnerability and stabbed out with a knife. It doesn't matter who dies this time, it's you, next time it's your master, the eldest prince, isn't it? After saying this, Zhang Ziluo no longer wanted to fight, but pierced his body with a knife. You. The killer looked at the dagger that pierced his body and looked at Zhang Ziluo in disbelief. The pain calmed him down. At this moment, he thought about one thing clearly. Who is this woman? Their whereabouts were so hidden, how could he know they were in this place? And the master behind them is the eldest prince, how did she know? His eyes widened with a look of shock and fear. He knows best how strong his own skills are. It is precisely because of this that the master trusts him so much and values him so much that he is asked to do this task. Because once Kui Hejin died, the master was likely to gain the support of the Hungnong Yang family. But he didn't expect that they would be killed before they took action. The killer staggered back a few steps, and suddenly sat on his knees on the ground. Zhang Ziluo looked at his bleeding wound and said, "Don't worry, you won't die yet. This dagger didn't pierce your heart. It's just a little bit close. Don't even think about committing suicide, because the dagger has been smeared with medicine. You should be familiar with it. And it's my homemade Ruin Jinsan. It's so effective that you can't even move your internal energy." The killer moved, and indeed found that he could not move at all. He asked, "Why don't you kill me?" Zhang Ziluo held her hands and said coldly, "Because you still have some value. Tell me, the eldest prince sent people to rob the people of their food. Where are they?" The killer's pupils trembled, as if he couldn't believe that the person in front of him actually knew such news. Or say that someone among them betrayed them and leaked the news. The killer looked at the woman in black in fear. "Who are you?" Yes, Zhang Ziluo was fully armed, wearing black clothes, and her face was covered, so the killer couldn't see her clearly. "Don't even know who she is." The killer could not think about the identity of Kui Hejin's wife. Because they had investigated before coming here, they found out that Kui Hejin married a country girl and was in public and setting up a stall. There was nothing special about her, so they didn't care. I would never have thought that a country girl could have such skill. They only thought that someone was protecting Kui Hejin. Or someone is watching them. The power of the second prince. Or did the Yang family of Hungnong send people to protect Kui Hejin? He had no way of knowing. Zhang Ziluo said coldly, "You are not qualified to know who I am. It doesn't matter if you don't say it. I have a way to make you speak." Zhang Ziluo bought medicinal materials at the medical clinic and prepared a pill, which can make people hallucinate and tell the truth. Medicinal materials are precious, so don't use them if you can. This was prepared from the medicinal materials she spent a lot of money to buy. The killer said, "I don't know what you said." They will not betray their master, simply because no one can afford the consequences of betraying their master. They all have weaknesses in the hands of their masters. The eldest prince is as suspicious as the emperor. Even if he trains killers, he always looks for people who have concerns and relatives to train killers. The lives of their relatives are in the hands of the eldest prince. Once they betrayed, the eldest prince would not just kill them. They know best how ruthless the eldest prince's methods are. "You seem to have a tough mouth." The killer wanted to bite his tongue at this time, but he didn't have any strength. Zhang Ziluo could only put the pill into his mouth, and it melted in his mouth. "You, cough. It's useless. This medicine melts in your mouth. Just a little bit of it will work." The killer started to panic, but after just a moment, his eyes became distracted. Zhang Ziluo asked. The eldest prince sent people to rob people's crops. How many people did he send? The killer answered mechanically, more than 100 people. What are the skills of these people, who are they, and where are they disguised? They are elite soldiers under the eldest prince. They disguised themselves as bandits and hid in the former Black Rock village. They waited for the farmers to collect the grain and then went to it back in the middle of the night. It was done quietly, no one knew it was related to the eldest prince. Hearing this, Zhang Ziluo raised the corner of her mouth with a sarcastic arc and said, "What if there are those who are dissatisfied and resist?" The eldest prince said that he would be killed without mercy. Zhang Ziluo's eyes flashed coldly. "You are so ruthless, you are not afraid of anyone finding out that she is related to the eldest prince?" The killer replied mechanically, "No one dares to leak the news. If anyone is suspicious, the eldest prince has said that the blame can be put on Prince Duan in Qingzhou." Zhang Ziluo snorted coldly, "This eldest prince is really ruthless. Do you know what Princess Jiamin means?" The killer said, "Princess Jiamin wants us to kill Kui Qingkai. Kui Qingkai has nothing to do with the Pei family anymore. Is Princess Jiamin still not letting her go? This woman is really cruel and ruthless. She and the eldest prince are indeed brother and sister. They are the same as each other. If these two people were here in Bezhu, Zhang Ziluo would definitely kill them." She thought she would be much calmer, but just listening to these words made her feel angry. The killer said, "I don't know, we just follow orders." As if thinking of something, Zhang Ziluo asked, "Is the incident between Princess Jiamin and Pei Nanchen true?" The killer seemed a little confused and didn't know what to answer. Zhang Ziluo said, "Is Pei Nanchen ready to be Princess Jiamin's consort?"